utilities, financials, industrials, all exposed in their existing portfolios and positions, all exposed negatively to carbon. So wind farms are one of the very few ways that they can get an offsetting exposure in addition to the electricity that's generated.
It's very important for the utilities and for governments and for the customers of electricity to realise that when you turn your production of electricity to renewables, you actually achieve several benefits that haven't been articulated properly up to now. The first benefit, of course, is that you make electricity without releasing any CO2. The CO2 that's used in making the wind turbine is repaid in the first 3 months, and thereafter you're just making electricity without any CO2. So that's a huge benefit. And we'll have a huge benefit to the customer, because America right now is introducing a tax on CO2. Europe, nearly every country in Europe has a tax on CO2. The world will have a big tax on CO2 over the next 20 years.
We know exactly how much it's going to cost to run the wind farm, because the fuel, there's no volatility in the fuel cost. The fuel cost is zero.
By knowing this cost, you change the riskiness of the system. People call it the systemic risk. You actually reduce the overall risk from fossil fuels whose prices are going literally up and down every day. When the wind blows, the first plant you switch off is your most expensive plant. So that's what we call the merit order effect. And that merit order effect has been seen fairly dramatically in places like Germany and Denmark over the past 5 years, where in Schleswig-Holstein, the 40% of their electricity coming from wind, and in Lower Saxony 50%, and in Denmark 25%. So you see a big effect in terms of reducing the price there. When the wind blows, it reduces the demand for fossil fuels and therefore the price. So the more wind you have in the system, or the more any renewables you have in the system, the less demand for fossil fuels you have. So you actually reduce the price just by having wind on the system. In a study that was conducted in Mexico about 10 years ago, it was shown that if you introduced 10% wind onto the system in Mexico, you actually would reduce the price of fossil fuels by 9%.
We can deploy it at scale. We can do it fast because the technology is available today, and it can be delivered on scale.
Wind has taken over in terms of new installation. The other technologies, it's ahead of gas turbine combined cycles, which were the dominant technology, and it's ahead of nuclear, it's ahead of coal. It is the technology of choice for new generation in Europe.